Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of The Daily Debate. My name is Ahmed Nader and tonight we'll be focusing on the presidential activities of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in the past week, and more specifically the African tour to Angola, Zambia and then Mozambique at the end of the week, as it included this tour historic visits to Angola, first of all as the first Egyptian president to be visiting Angola and heading the COMESA summit, the 22nd COMESA summit, and turning the chairmanship to Zambia in Lusaka, and then finally meeting with the president of Mozambique in Maputo at the end of last week. And to be shedding more light on such a historic visit and the African tour that took place in the past week, I am honored to be having with me in the studio for tonight Dr. Sherif Amer, the Professor of Geopolitical Affairs and International Relations. Thank you very much, Doctor, for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. First of all, we'll be starting straight away with the top story for today, and it comes through the activities of Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, and in terms of infrastructure and tourism as well, as Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli said that the development work for the roads and the traffic access leading to the Grand Egyptian Museum will kick off within days. Over a meeting with several concerned officials on Sunday, the Prime Minister stressed the need to turn the area surrounding the iconic museum into a distinguished tourist destination ahead of the upcoming inauguration. Dr. Sherif, as we did see in this top story, it includes a lot of things. One of them is the urban development, the infrastructure, the development of infrastructure that we have had under the tenure of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, culture and tourism as well in terms of the potential inauguration of the Grand Egyptian Museum. How do you see the importance of inaugurating such a museum?
Well, it will give a boosting to the Egyptian tourism industry.
Yes. Because
we all know that we always had only only the Nile cruises industry concerning the history of Egypt. Yes. And the Red Sea. We didn't really invest in what is very important to the whole world, which is museums. Yes. We all know that they have this special importance in their societies about visiting museums. The Cairo Museum was a little bit insufficient for all the treasures that we had. Yes. The new Egyptian Museum now is something spectacular. We all know that it's in high-tech preparations. We got all the expertise from outside world. Its shape as a pyramid and the construction is fabulous. It has so many meanings. It has not only the pharaonic civilization but all the Egyptian history. So anyone who's interested would go through each part of Egypt's history. It has sectors, and this is from what I knew from many foreign visitors, that what is magnificent about it, it has sectors for every pharaoh in Egypt and its history, as they teach it in school books outside of Egypt. Yes. Which is very honoring for Egypt, that when tourists come, especially young people, they will see what they were taught in school. They will see the treasures of Tutankhamun, of Ramses the Great, of all these Egyptian kings who they read about. They will see it with their bare eyes. They will see how their treasures are kept, are exposed to the public in a way very, very scientific. there is scientific explanation. So this would give Egypt also the sense that it's not only a country that you can get a boat and go through the Nile or go to the sea. No, you can learn. It's academic, it's scientific. It helps to the contribution of other specialists who will come also and give their expertise. It's a hub. And it was a great thing to do so, because we are telling the whole world that the history of Egypt is not only landscape, it's science, it's Egyptology. Yes. This is the true university, the true laboratory of Egyptology.
Yes, Doctor, and heading to the main topic for today of the daily debate, the African tour that took place last week by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in Angola, Zambia and Mozambique. We have details in the upcoming report regarding this tour, so stay tuned.
President Fattah al-Sisi concluded a first visit to Angola, Zambia and Mozambique last week, demonstrating the continued importance Egypt places on political, economic and security ties with Southern Africa and the continent as a whole. President Sisi arrived in Angola on Wednesday, where he met his counterpart to discuss strengthening bilateral relations as well as the conflict in Sudan. On Thursday, the president flew to Zambia, where he met Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema, participated in the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa COMESA Summit in the Zambian capital of Lusaka, during which President Sisi urged more regional integration. The president then headed to Mozambique, where he was received by the president on Friday. The two leaders discussed ways of increasing the number of Egyptian companies in Mozambique, boost economic and security cooperation, and the situation in Sudan. It was the first time an Egyptian president visited those countries. The African tour aims at generating new ties, especially in light of the current global economic circumstances. Also, it aims at promoting integration and trade, where Egypt is regarded as an international gateway to Africa. Egypt has succeeded in increasing economic ties to sub-Saharan African countries. Trade between Egypt and other countries in COMESA increased by more than 20% to $5.3 billion in 2022. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam issue is one of these, where Egypt addressed. It has been discussed by the United Nations, the African Union, Arab League and other international bodies. Building support on the issue could help towards a future deal. Another challenge for Egypt that relates to sub-Saharan Africa is climate change, where exchange of expertise could help navigate the water climate issue. Egypt announced in October plans to launch satellite to monitor effects of climate change on Africa.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate. Dr. Sherif, Amer, how do you see the importance and the significance of such an African trip for President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi?
It's a continuity of Egypt's concentration about the African issues. We all know, unfortunately, for decades, we have neglected this file. It's Egypt's backyard. It's Egypt's continent. It's full of riches and strategic importance, but we have forgotten that for decades. And we have paid, unfortunately, the price in what we have now, the problem of the Renaissance Dam. We are trying to mend all these bridges again. We have to work with our, as President Sisi called them, our brothers in the African continent. The president was the first president to visit Rwanda and Burundi after the genocide. Now he's the first Egyptian president to visit Angola. He was also the first Egyptian president to visit South Sudan in Juba, and it was very, very tense there. Although we worked with everyone there, but it was still, the security was very fragile, but the president insisted by going by himself there. We have restructured Egypt's policy in Africa. Let's not forget that in 2013 we were banned from the African Union because of the disinformation about Egypt's revolution. And at that time we contacted countries that we had bad relations at a certain time, like Algeria. We started talking with them, we started talking with Niger, and they defended Egypt's case, and it was a breakthrough. Then we were the head of the AU. So I think that the president now is visiting these countries because there is a change in the whole world now, in the map. It's about coalitions, it's about working together to protect our interest. We all know that the African continent now, fortunately, is not under the spell of the Western forces anymore. There is Chinese, there is Russian competition in there. There is production inside the continent. This continent is rich, like Egypt. It's a rich country. We have riches, natural riches to develop. And this is what the president used to say in the youth conferences, that we have to work in our own countries, not depend for immigration outside, and that we will get outside help. We have to work by ourselves. And we have seen it's a visionary statement, because the West now is suffering from economic crisis. They won't be able to help anyone. They need to help themselves. Yes. So the president is restructuring Egypt's policy in Africa. If we do not build our chain of command, chain of expertise, chain of economic collaboration, it will be devastating for all of us. The continent will be just parts of rich and poor countries, and that's it. Let's work together, and I think that we are having now new opportunities with Russian companies, with Chinese companies, Indian companies, all working in Africa. And let's not forget that there is a new leadership in lots of African countries now from several decades ago. Leadership who are willing to work with the new conditions of the world. There is no, like the Cold War, or there is no this power of the Western Hemisphere, the French, the British, the United States, and that's it. No, it's multicultural, and we will work with everyone outside the country, outside the continent.
During this African tour, we have seen President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi call multiple times regarding the economic integration, the political integration, and strengthening the bilateral ties between Egypt and Africa in general, and more specifically with Angola, Zambia, and then Mozambique. How do you see the process of doing that, and how do you think it could be done as soon as possible?
Well, let's be frank, it won't be done from day one, because unfortunately the continent and these specific countries suffered from civil wars. And we all know that the civil wars were always instigated by foreign powers supporting coups d'etats and supporting these tribal factions against the others. So I think now that there is an African president like President Sisi talking to them as a brother and telling them, now we have to concentrate on our future. No one will help us. We are all together in the same boat, which is Africa. So of course it will take time. It won't be that easy. These countries went through a lot. We went through a lot in 2011. So it was not an easy process for all of us. Yes. But someone have to trigger the alarm and say we have to work together. And I think this is what the president is doing. He's telling these countries, well, you were seen always as fragile countries, as countries of famine, of poverty. Well, there is another sphere. You have to see that we could work together. If we won't do it, we will be really lost. So Egypt has the expertise. Egypt has the potential of aiding these countries, like we have constructed dams in Tanzania, in Congo. We have constructed medical centers in Juba, in South Sudan. We have helped also the economy of Ethiopia, although we have all these differences. But the president used to say, we will never stand against the economic development of any African country. So I think that these countries are happy that such a country like Egypt is giving them the attention, giving them the care, and trying to work with them economically. We have always thought that the work or the market is always our partners in the EU. our well, all our respects for our friends in the Western Hemisphere, but we have to work also with Africa, and we could do a great business with these people.
We have to work with Africa for Africa because we have conflicts nowadays. One of them is in Sudan. President Assisi spoke about this situation several times. One of them was regarding the inspection of the military academy yesterday. The conflict in Sudan needs an African solution from the African people. How do you see this solution being solved, or this conflict being solved?
The conflict was instigated the first day by foreign interference. When I say foreign interference, I mean outside the continent.
Yes.
And some factions were supported by other forces outside of Africa, and we have seen that the Sudanese people pay the heavy price now. The president is strengthening from day one, although we went through difficult days at the beginning of this conflict, but the president used to say we have to keep our calm, we have to work together with the Sudanese people. No other partners should get into this business because this is an African situation. We have to deal with it. We know that if Sudan disintegrates, it will be a disaster for everyone. The problem of Sudan now is the tribal and political differences. It's very complicated. This is, once again, a rich land which has gold, which has oil, which has agriculture. So no wonder that people outside of this continent are willing to do all they can to put their hands in it. So once again, it's the riches that I was talking about. So the president wants that the Africans be alerted that supporting any faction against the other, it will just make it hell for all of us, because it will harm Libya, it will harm South Sudan, it will harm the Horn of Africa, Chad. We don't need this at that time. We need peace and calm and cooperation. So yes. I think that Egypt could play a major role in reconciliation.
Yes, Dr. Sherif Amer will be taking a quick break and will be returning once again to you on the Daily Debate, so stay tuned.